The morning had started out like any other. The sun was already blazing across the neighborhood streets, heating up the asphalt and making the chrome trim of parked cars shimmer like mirrors. My driveway was quiet, shaded partially by the large oak tree I had planted years ago, and in that driveway sat my pride and joy, a freshly detailed Jeep, spotless and standing out like a soldier on parade. That Jeep wasn't just any vehicle to me. It represented years of hard work, countless overtime hours, and sacrifices most people wouldn't see or appreciate. Every scratch buffed out, every tire rotation, every modification I had done with my own hands, it was more than just a way to get around. It was a piece of me. As I sipped my coffee on the porch, watching the steam rise and twist into the morning air, I didn't know that today would be anything but ordinary. I didn't know that the quiet hum of the neighborhood would soon be broken by yelling, entitlement, and eventually, flashing red and blue lights. Because this wasn't just another day. This was the day Karen set her sights on my Jeep. I first noticed her when I heard the click-clack of high heels approaching down the sidewalk. Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of our neighborhood, was impossible to miss. Her blonde bob haircut looked like it hadn't moved an inch since the late 90s, and she wore oversized sunglasses even though the sun had barely climbed over the rooftops. She strutted as if every inch of concrete belonged to her family, her voice already cutting through the calm air as she talked on her phone. "Yes, honey, don't worry. Mommy will handle it. You'll get the car you deserve. I'll take care of it today." Her words made me pause. I didn't think much of it until she slowed down, tilted her sunglasses down to peer into my driveway, and stopped dead in her tracks. Her gaze locked on the Jeep. Now, I had seen that look before, the kind of look someone gives when they see something they want but don't think they should have to earn. Her lips curled into a smug little smirk, and she adjusted her bag over her shoulder before walking straight toward my property without so much as a hello. "Good morning," I said cautiously, setting my mug down on the porch railing. She ignored the greeting entirely, her eyes still glued to the Jeep. Then she tilted her head as if appraising it, like she was already picturing it in her driveway instead of mine. "That Jeep," she said finally, her tone dripping with the kind of entitlement that always made my blood pressure rise, "would be perfect for my daughter." I blinked, not sure I had heard her right. "Excuse me." She took off her sunglasses dramatically, revealing eyes that narrowed with superiority. "I said that Jeep would be perfect for my daughter. She just turned 18, and she needs a reliable vehicle to drive around town. Something safe, sturdy, and that Jeep is exactly what she should have." Her words hung in the air like a bad smell. I couldn't help but chuckle. Well, good for her. But this Jeep isn't for sale. Karen's smirk vanished, replaced by a scowl. "I wasn't asking if it was for sale. I'm telling you, it's perfect for her. You don't really need a Jeep, do you? You can always get another car. My daughter deserves this one. She's been through so much." There it was, the Karen logic. The twisted math of entitlement where what's yours should magically become hers simply because she thinks she needs it more. I crossed my arms, staring her down. "Lady, I don't know what kind of fantasy you're living in, but nobody's deserving my Jeep but me. I worked for it, I paid for it, and it's mine." Her nostrils flared as though she couldn't believe I had the audacity to deny her demand. "Do you know who I am?" I rolled my eyes. "Yeah. You're Karen. And this conversation is over." I turned back toward my porch, fully expecting that to be the end of it. But with Karen, nothing is ever that simple. She stomped her heels against the driveway like a child throwing a tantrum. "You are being unbelievably selfish. My daughter needs this Jeep. You don't understand what she's been through. She deserves it more than you ever could." At this point, I couldn't tell if she genuinely believed what she was saying or if she was just so used to steamrolling people that the concept of no never registered in her vocabulary. Either way, I wasn't giving an inch. "Karen," I said firmly, "you and your daughter are not my responsibility. My Jeep is not your daughter's birthday present. End of story." She glared at me, her jaw tightening. Then she said something that made me laugh out loud in disbelief. "Fine. If you won't do the right thing, I'll just make sure you do." And with that, she whipped out her phone. I didn't know it yet, but that single action, Karen dialing those numbers, was the moment the whole day spiraled into madness. She was calling the police, convinced that somehow she could twist the story into one where I was the bad guy. The only problem was, she had no idea who I knew, and no clue that the state attorney himself had already been scheduled to meet me that afternoon. But that's getting ahead of the story. For now, all I knew was this: Karen had decided that my Jeep belonged to her daughter, and she was about to drag the law into it to try to make it happen. And I wasn't about to roll over. Karen stood in my driveway, one hand on her hip, the other clutching her phone like it was a sword she planned to wield. Her face was twisted into that smug determination I'd seen her use against other neighbors, when she wanted the HOA to fine someone for painting their shutters the wrong shade of blue, or when she demanded that kids playing in the street be removed, because their laughter annoyed her. This wasn't new behavior for her. But this time, she was pointing it directly at me. She paced a few steps away from my Jeep, phone pressed to her ear, her voice loud enough for the entire cul-de-sac to hear. "Yes, hello, I need officers dispatched immediately. There's a very aggressive man here, threatening me over a vehicle dispute. He's unstable and I'm worried for my safety." I nearly choked on my coffee. Aggressive? Unstable? I had been standing there calmly the entire time, trying to de-escalate her nonsense. "Karen, you're lying," I said loudly enough so the neighbors peeking through their blinds could hear. "Nobody's threatened you. You're trespassing in my driveway, demanding my Jeep like it's a toy at a garage sale." She ignored me, walking a circle as though she was staging the performance of her life. "Yes, officers, it's a Jeep Wrangler, black, customized license plate." She leaned in closer, squinting at my plate like she had every right to read it aloud. "Yes, yes, please hurry. He's frightening me." I shook my head in disbelief. "Frightening you? Lady, the only scary thing here is your entitlement." She snapped her fingers in my direction, as if dismissing me like some servant who had failed to bring her a glass of wine. "You'll regret this attitude when the police arrive. You think you're clever, but the law is on my side." I leaned casually against my porch post, crossing my arms. "Is that so? And what exactly is the charge here, Karen? Owning a Jeep that you want?" Her face flushed red. "It's theft by selfishness. My daughter needs a safe car, and you're hoarding one you don't need. That's practically criminal." I almost burst out laughing. Theft by selfishness? That wasn't even a phrase, let alone a law. "You might want to brush up on your legal vocabulary," I said, smirking. "Because that's not a crime. You can't just invent charges because you're jealous." Her response was to stomp her heel into the concrete like she was summoning thunder. "You think this is funny? When the police get here, we'll see who's laughing. I've lived in this neighborhood for over 10 years. I'm on the HOA board. People listen to me." There it was again, the Karen calling card. Her belief that tenure and loudness equaled power. She had bullied neighbors into repainting their fences, forced families to move because of violations, and strutted around like she was mayor of the block. But today she had picked the wrong driveway to invade. 15 minutes later, the flashing red and blue lights reflected off my Jeep's glossy paint. 2 police cruisers pulled up, and out stepped 3 officers, 1 male sergeant and 2 younger officers. Karen instantly transformed from furious diva to helpless victim, crocodile tears at the ready. "Officers," she wailed, waving her hands dramatically. "Thank goodness you're here. This man, he threatened me, and he's refusing to release my daughter's vehicle." The sergeant raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, slow down. What vehicle?" She jabbed a manicured finger at my Jeep. "That one. That's my daughter's Jeep. He's being aggressive and won't hand it over." The officers turned their gaze toward me. I stayed calm, leaning against the porch with my arms folded, making it very clear I wasn't rattled. "Sir," the sergeant asked, "can you explain what's going on here?" "Gladly," I said. "This woman marched onto my property this morning demanding that I hand over my Jeep to her daughter. She claims her daughter deserves it more than I do. When I refused, she called you and spun some wild story about me threatening her. As you can see, there are no threats, no aggression, nothing illegal here, unless trespassing counts." Karen gasped like I had slapped her. "Trespassing? How dare you accuse me of that?" "I'm your neighbor." "Exactly," I replied. "Which means you should know better than to stand in my driveway making false claims." The sergeant pinched the bridge of his nose. He looked like a man who had dealt with Karen before, and was regretting it already. Ma'am, do you have any proof that this Jeep belongs to you or your daughter? Karen straightened her blouse, puffing out her chest. I don't need proof. Everyone here knows I'm on the HOA board. My daughter deserves this Jeep, and it should be transferred to her. I'm not leaving until it's done. The two younger officers exchanged a glance, one suppressing what looked like a smirk. The sergeant sighed. That's not how property works, ma'am. If the vehicle is registered to him, it's his property. Period. Karen's face contorted into pure fury. So you're taking his side? You're all men. You don't understand how important this is for a young woman's safety. My daughter needs that Jeep. She jabbed her finger at me again. This selfish man is just hoarding it. I demand you arrest him for theft. One of the younger officers chuckled, quickly covering it with a cough. Man, that's not theft. That's ownership. The sergeant finally turned to me. Sir, do you have registration and ID to confirm this vehicle belongs to you? Of course, I said, fishing my wallet from my pocket. I handed over my driver's license and walked the officer to the Jeep, where I retrieved the registration papers from the glove box. Everything was in perfect order, my name, my address, all up to date. The sergeant skimmed the papers and handed them back with a nod. Looks good. No issues here. I smiled politely. Appreciate it, officer. Karen, however, wasn't done. Her voice shot up an octave. What? That's impossible. Check again. He probably forged those papers. That Jeep has to belong to my daughter. It's exactly the kind of car she wanted for her birthday. The sergeant finally lost patience. Ma'am, wanting something doesn't make it yours. His paperwork is valid. If you keep pushing this, you could be the one in legal trouble. Her mouth fell open. Legal trouble? For what? I'm the victim here. The sergeant's tone hardened. For filing a false police report, which is a crime. The color drained from her face. For the first time all morning, Karen looked rattled. But even then, she tried to salvage her pride. Well, I'll just take this up with my attorney. And the HOA. You haven't heard the last of this. She spun on her heels, storming back down the driveway, muttering threats about lawsuits and neighborhood meetings. The officers exchanged knowing glances. The younger one muttered under his breath, "Classic." I chuckled. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Sorry you had to waste a call on this circus act. The sergeant gave me a tired smile. Not the first time we've had a complaint from her. Won't be the last. Just keep your doors locked, sir. I nodded, watching them leave. The cruisers rolled away, and the street grew quiet again. But in the back of my mind, I knew this wasn't over. Karen wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. She'd lick her wounds, regroup, and come back swinging. What she didn't know was that I had an ace up my sleeve. Because later that very day, I was scheduled to meet with none other than the state attorney himself. And Karen's petty little war over my Jeep was about to backfire in a way she could never have imagined. I thought the police visit would have been enough to shut her down. For most people, having 3 officers explain that your fantasy isn't backed by law would have been a reality check. But Karen wasn't most people. By mid-afternoon, just as I was getting ready for my meeting with the state attorney, I heard it again. The unmistakable clack, clack, clack of Karen's heels echoing up my driveway like a war drum. This time she wasn't on the phone. She was marching with purpose, lips pressed tight, eyes blazing with the fury of someone who had lost a battle but convinced herself she could still win the war. I set down the folder of documents I was organizing and stepped onto the porch, already bracing myself. Karen, I said flatly, what part of the Jeep isn't yours didn't sink in this morning? She jabbed a finger at me. You may have fooled the police, but you won't fool me. I know you don't deserve that Jeep. My daughter does. And I've already called my attorney. He says I can file for community asset entitlement. I blinked, fighting the urge to laugh. Community what? Community asset entitlement, she repeated proudly, as though she had uncovered some secret weapon. It means that if something is deemed beneficial to the neighborhood, it can be redistributed to those who need it most. I pinched the bridge of my nose, biting back a grin. Karen, that's not a law. That's not even a real phrase. That's just a bunch of words you slap together to make yourself sound important. Her cheeks flushed bright red. Don't you dare talk down to me. You'll regret it. When my attorney sends you the paperwork, you'll be forced to hand over that Jeep. The HOA will make sure of it. There it was again, the HOA card. The magic wand she thought could bend reality to her will. She had weaponized that board for years, terrorizing people over mailbox heights, grass lengths, and holiday decorations. But she was trying to use it now on something far outside their jurisdiction. I smirked. Good luck with that. The HOA can tell me what shade of beige I'm allowed to paint my fence, but they can't take my Jeep. Not today, not ever. She puffed out her chest. We'll see. You think you're safe because the police didn't side with me, but I have influence. People listen to me. People respect me. I leaned against the porch railing, cool as ever. You keep saying people respect you. Funny how nobody came out here this morning to back you up. All your neighbors were watching from behind their blinds, probably recording the whole thing. The only reputation you're building is as the neighborhood clown. Her mouth dropped open like I had slapped her with a brick. For a second, she was speechless, something I had never seen before. But then her eyes narrowed, and she hissed like a snake. You think you've won, but this isn't over. If you won't hand over the Jeep willingly, I'll make sure you regret it. I'll ruin you. That was the moment I realized she wasn't just being entitled. She was trying to wage a personal war. 2 hours later, I was dressed for my meeting. Slacks, collared shirt, documents tucked neatly in a leather portfolio. The state attorney was due to arrive at my place before we headed downtown together, and I wanted everything in order. Just as I checked my watch, a sleek black sedan rolled into the cul-de-sac and parked in front of my house. Out stepped the state attorney himself, briefcase in hand, his presence sharp and commanding. I greeted him warmly at the door. Mr. Alvarez, good to see you again. Likewise, he said with a firm handshake. Ready to review the case files before the meeting? Before I could answer, the storm returned. Karen had been lurking nearby, probably waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. The instant she saw the state attorney, her heels started clicking against the pavement, her voice already rising. There he is, she shrieked, pointing at me like she had just uncovered a fugitive. That's the man. He's stealing my daughter's Jeep, and the police won't do anything about it. You need to handle this immediately. The state attorney blinked, clearly confused. Excuse me. Karen stormed right up to us, jabbing her finger toward my Jeep like it was Exhibit A in her fantasy trial. That vehicle belongs to my daughter. He's hoarding it out of spite. You're a man of the law. You can order him to release it. Mr. Alvarez raised an eyebrow, then looked at me. Is this some kind of joke? I sighed. Unfortunately, no. That's Karen, our resident neighborhood tyrant. She's been trying all day to claim my Jeep belongs to her daughter. The police already came and cleared it up, but she won't let it go. Karen scoffed. Don't listen to him. He's manipulative. I've been in this community for years. I'm on the HOA board. My daughter deserves that Jeep, and if he doesn't hand it over, I'll sue. The state attorney's expression hardened, and he adjusted his tie. Man, let me make this very clear. I am the state attorney. This man is meeting with me because we are reviewing a legitimate legal case. If you continue harassing him, you may find yourself on the wrong side of the law. Karen froze, her mouth half open. You're the state attorney? Yes, Alvarez said sharply. And unless you'd like to discuss your false police report this morning, I suggest you step away immediately. For once, Karen didn't have a comeback. She just stood there, her face turning pale as the weight of her mistake began to sink in. She had tried to flex her influence, but now she was staring at someone who had real power and who wasn't amused by her antics. I couldn't resist adding fuel to the fire. You hear that, Karen? All day you've been threatening me with attorneys. Funny how mine's standing right here. Her eyes darted between me, the Jeep, and Alvarez. Her confidence cracked like glass under a hammer. This isn't over, she muttered weakly, before retreating down the sidewalk, her heels clattering with far less authority than before. The state attorney shook his head, muttering, "Unbelievable." Then he looked at me. Does this kind of nonsense happen often around here? More than you'd think, I said. But she picked the wrong neighbor this time. He smirked. Well, consider this an added bonus to our partnership. If she keeps it up, we'll handle it legally. I don't have much patience for people who waste the system's time with nonsense like this. As we walked back into the house, I couldn't help but smile. Karen had just been publicly shut down by the highest legal authority in the county, but I knew her. She wasn't done yet. She'd try to salvage her pride, maybe even push things further out of desperation. The difference now, she was up against me and the state attorney, and that battle she had no chance of winning. The next morning, I thought maybe, just maybe, Karen had learned her lesson. After all, it wasn't every day you got shut down by the state attorney himself, right there in front of the whole neighborhood. But then again, Karen was not the type to accept defeat. By 9 a.m., I heard shouting outside. Curious, I stepped onto the porch and saw Karen standing in the cul-de-sac with her daughter beside her. The daughter looked embarrassed, clutching a phone in one hand and muttering, "Mom, please stop." But Karen was in full performance mode, rallying whoever would listen. "This is an outrage," she barked to the neighbors peeking out from their driveways. "This man is hoarding a Jeep that should belong to my daughter. The police failed us, and even the so-called state attorney thinks he can intimidate me. But I will not be silenced." Her daughter tugged her sleeve, whispering, "Mom, this is humiliating. Just drop it." "Quiet, Ashley," Karen snapped. "Mommy's doing this for you." That was my breaking point. I stepped down from the porch and walked toward the growing crowd. All eyes turned as I joined the scene. "Karen," I said calmly but firmly, "this is the last time I'll say this. The Jeep is mine. It always has been mine. Your tantrums won't change that fact." The crowd murmured. A couple of neighbors nodded in agreement. Karen, sensing she was losing her audience, raised her voice even louder. "He threatened me yesterday. He tricked the police with fake documents. He even bribed the state attorney to take his side." That last part made me laugh out loud. Bribed the state attorney? You really are digging your own grave. And right on cue, a familiar black sedan pulled into the cul-de-sac. The state attorney, Mr. Alvarez, stepped out, briefcase in hand. He glanced around, taking in the spectacle with an expression that said he already regretted being here. "Mr. Alvarez," Karen shouted, rushing toward him like he was her savior. "You need to arrest this man. He's stealing my daughter's vehicle, and now he's trying to turn the neighborhood against me." Alvarez raised a hand, silencing her instantly. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Ma'am, I warned you yesterday. This obsession of yours has crossed the line from nuisance into harassment. You filed a false police report. You attempted to intimidate your neighbor. And now you're making public accusations against the state attorney's office. Do you have any idea how serious that is?" Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. For once, she looked genuinely rattled. Alvarez continued, his tone sharp and deliberate. "This man," he pointed to me, "is not only the legal owner of that Jeep, but he is also working directly with my office on an important matter. If you continue harassing him, I will have no choice but to file charges. Do you understand me?" The entire neighborhood went silent. Even the birds seemed to pause, waiting for Karen's reply. Her daughter stepped forward, cheeks red with embarrassment. "Mom, just stop. Please. You're making everything worse." Karen's eyes darted from her daughter, to me, to Alvarez, and finally to the neighbors who were all watching, phones raised, recording every second. Her bravado cracked. I just wanted what was best for my daughter," she stammered. Alvarez's expression softened slightly, but his words remained firm. "What's best for your daughter is for you to stop embarrassing her and yourself. Go home, ma'am. This conversation is over." Karen stood frozen for a moment, then spun on her heels. Without another word, she stormed off, dragging her daughter behind her. The crowd slowly dispersed, whispers rippling through the street. I looked at Alvarez, shaking my head. "You handled that like a pro." He gave a small smirk. "Comes with the job. People like her think the law bends to entitlement. It doesn't." As he turned back toward his car, he added, "By the way, if she tries anything else, let me know immediately. She's officially on my radar now." I grinned. "Will do." The black sedan pulled away, and the cul-de-sac returned to its quiet hum. My Jeep sat gleaming in the driveway, untouchable, a silent monument to the fact that hard work, and a little backup from the state attorney would always triumph over entitlement. And as for Karen, she never mentioned my Jeep again. She still strutted around at HOA meetings, still made her little power plays about grass lengths and mailbox colors. But every time she glanced my way, her face tightened just enough to remind me that she hadn't forgotten the humiliation. The difference was, now she knew better than to test me. Because that Jeep wasn't just a car. It was the day she learned that not everything in the world was hers for the taking.